Okay, when I share this on the screen, what I'd like to do is recite this Mangalacharna, and maybe what we'll do is we'll ask Ujjwala Prabhu to recite the Sanskrit, and then Bhana Biharani can read the English. Okay? Let's just see here. Go ahead.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam.
When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet?
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Itapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatan Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka.
He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute.
O my dear Krishna, O ocean of mercy, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye.
I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls.
Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha.
O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you.
The meter here, a little difficult for me. Yad Advaitam Brahma Parmesh. Yad Advaitam Brahma Parmesh.
Hey Krishna Khan.
I got it now. Yadadvaitam Brahma Panishaditad Apyasyatanuba Ya Atmantaryami Purusha Iti Sosyam Shavibhava Shadashvaryarpurno ya iha bhagavanta swayamayam na chaitanyat krishnas jagati paratattva paramiha.
What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body, and the Lord, known as the Supersoul, is but his localized plenary portion. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, full with 6 opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him.
Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shaktirasmat Ekatmana Vapipu Vipura Deha Bhedam Gataota Chaitanyakyam Prakatamaduna Tadhayam Chaikyamaptam Radha Bhava Dhyuti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam.
The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself.
Chiradadattam Nijagupta Vitam Swapremanamamritamatyudara Apamaramyo Vidatara Gaura Krishno Janebhyastamaham Prapadye.
The most munificent Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Gaura Krishna, distributed to everyone, even the lowest of men, his own confidential treasury in the form of the nectar of love of himself and the holy name. This was never given to the people at any time before. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Gauraganya Ganagota Goloduhadam Gauranga Kopa Briksham Gopala Gandaratidam Yati Singha Gaura Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachira Chachiya Dileka Kola Kahe Premananda Mona Goranga Hridaya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namare Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoya Mara Prana Re Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bidana Padama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Judi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pidva Rishayustat Priyajanaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatapta Brajabala Bapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is our 12th chapter of the Embankment of Separation. And this is our second session on this chapter, Mahaprabhu and Sri Gambhira. In our last session, we went over this text, which we have highlighted here in front of us, just to look back at that because it was a couple of weeks ago. And we spoke something about how Lord Jagannath is avatari and how he manifests himself before the devotee according to the mood of the devotee. And we gave some different examples of that and quite a bit of examples about how Lord Jagannath manifested himself as Lord Ramachandra before the great devotee Tulsidas, the author of Ramcharit Manas. So where the highlight ends, and it says, so because, Chaitanya, would you like to read?
Reading from here. I'm not going to be able to read the text. Can I continue from there?
The Sanskrit thing?
I won't be able to read the Sanskrit, or can I?
Yeah, you can skip over. It's okay.
My dear friend, where is Krishna? Who is like the moon rising from the ocean of Nanda Maharaj's dynasty? Where is Krishna? His head decorated with a peacock feather. Where is he? Where is Krishna, whose flute produces such a deep sound? Or where is Krishna, whose bodily luster is like the luster of the blue Indranila dew? Where is Krishna, who is so expert in rasa dancing? Or where is he who can save my life? Kindly tell me where to find Krishna, the treasure of my life and best of my friends. Feeling separation from him, I hereby condemn Providence, the shaper of my destiny.
So I wanted to actually start just a sentence before this. So because Mahaprabhu is in Radha Bhav, he's always crying for Krishna. And then he cited this verse, which appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which comes from Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhav, Kananda Kula Chandrama Kosiki Chandra Kalamkriti, which is speaking about the mood of Radha. And so the point at this part of our chapter and our discussion today is how Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but in the mood of Radharani. Why don't you go ahead and keep reading, Prabhuji?
These are Radharani's words. She is crying, and Mahaprabhu is in the same mood. In Lalita Madhava, Rupa Goswami has described Radharani's pralapa, which is like the delirium of a madman. Prasita Partrika Radha Vilapa Katara. Radharani is lamenting for Krishna in the same way that a woman laments when her husband has left home and gone to a foreign land. Virahini Radha has become mad. Oh, my dear Saki Lalita, such a high fever has come to me, I cannot describe it. This is Viraha Dvara, the fever of separation from Krishna. In this crying delirium, there is such a high degree of temperature that one becomes mad and his head reels. The doctor says, put an ice bag on his head.
Go ahead.
Radharani cries, oh, my dear girl companion, where is that moon of the Nanda dynasty? Nanda Kula Chandramaha. Kausikis Chandra Kalan Kritihi. Where is he on whose crest is a peacock feather? Where is he? Pa Mandra Murali Prabha. Where is Krishna upon whose lips a flute plays so sweetly? Where is he? Can you put a flute on Gaura? Although he is Krishna, you cannot put a flute on Gaura. Similarly, how can you put a peacock feather on he who is crying for Krishna like Radharani? His mood will be disturbed. Although he is Krishna, Gaura's mood is different. Therefore, Prabhupada said, don't disturb the mood of Gauranga.
Keep going.
Continue that?
You can keep going.
It is very painful to him. Our service is meant to give pleasure, not pain. We are servants and we must render service to please him, not for our own pleasure. He is to be pleased. If we say, oh Gaura, a peacock feather is on your head, you are Krishna, then how can he cry? Oh, I am Krishna, I cannot cry now. But Mahaprabhu is crying. Where is Krishna?
Go ahead and stop with that. So this is a very, very deep point, and I actually don't know that hardly anybody spoke much about this kind of mood before my Guru Maharaj, although we certainly find it in Srila Prabhupada's writing and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. When I say hardly anybody spoke about it, I mean devotees within ISKCON. Generally, we're absorbed in a preaching mood, and we're simply trying to tell people something about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what I usually hear from devotees is that he's the most merciful incarnation, and he's the kindest, he's the Karuna avatar. That's what we hear something about him. But I was just listening to another lecture of our Guru Maharaj recently, and he was saying that this Gora Tattva is higher than Krishna Tattva, higher than Radha Krishna Tattva. This is the highest part of our philosophy. It's a very, very difficult thing to understand. Who can understand this? So I want to go over a little bit some of the things that he's saying today. They've been considered a little controversial in the past, but I don't feel very comfortable describing them as controversial. It's actually very, very simple. We may speak something today about what devotees feel is a controversy. I don't even know if that's really important or not. But I'd like to read some things from our 543rd issue of Krishna Katamrita magazine, which we just recently printed also in hard form. Let's see, I can show you, I think, the cover of it. There it is. Which speaks about understanding the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's a beautiful painting, by the way. This painting is found in the temple of Lokanath Goswami's deity, Sri Sri Radha Vinod in Jaipur. Deities which were given to him by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, or even say Krishna, who appeared before him in response to his desire to worship the Lord. And in that temple, we visited there, my gosh, I don't know, it must have been at least 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. We saw this painting. And I immediately said, wow, and I asked the Pujari to let me take pictures, and he was very strict. No, you're not allowed. So when we wanted to do this issue of our magazine, I became excited and I wanted to get this painting. So I got in touch with a friend in Jaipur, and he went to the temple, and the Pujari refused. No, this is a very special painting. We don't let anybody take pictures of this. So it just so happens that this friend of ours in Jaipur is also friends with a doctor. And it so happens that doctor is a surgeon, and that surgeon had recently performed surgery on that Pujari. So he was a good contact. And through our friend in Jaipur, through the doctor, we got this photograph. And recently, I asked our friend to go back, and a second thought, I asked this Pujari, what is it that's just so special about this painting? And I think there's more to the story. He said the Pujari just wouldn't talk with him. He said, no, this is very, very high. He told him, he said, this is Mahaprabhu's mood in the Gambhira, which, of course, we see Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi. And Mahaprabhu, he said, is feeling separation from Krishna in the same way that Radharani is feeling. And the Pujari told our friend, he said, you cannot understand these things. We will not speak this with you. So anyway, let's dive a little bit into this issue of our Krishna Katamrita magazine, which really is an expansion of this section from Embankment of Separation. In fact, we printed this section in there, and we also printed some things from His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. And I'd like to read from Srila Prabhupada's article. Hey, Monty, would you like to read something?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, sure.
Sure. The Lord's acceptance of the role of a devotee. Maybe you can start with that.
Can the Lord's acceptance of the role of a devotee in the eternal form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is another of the Lord's wonderful features. A conditioned soul cannot reach the absolute personality of Godhead by his imperfect endeavor, and therefore it is wonderful that Lord Sri Krishna, in the form of Lord Gauranga, has made it easy for everyone to approach him. Swarup Damodar Goswami has described Lord Chaitanya as Krishna himself with the attitude of Radharani, or combination of Radha and Krishna. The intention of Lord Chaitanya is to taste Krishna's sweetness in transcendental love. He does not care to think of himself as Krishna because he wants the position of Radharani. We should remember this. A class of so-called devotees, called the Nadia Nagaris or Gaura Nagaris, pretend that they have the sentiment of gopis toward Lord Chaitanya, but they do not realize that he placed himself not as the enjoyer Krishna, but as the enjoyed, the devotee of Krishna. The concoctions of unauthorized persons pretending to be bona fide have not been accepted by Lord Chaitanya. Presentations such as those of the Gaura Nagaris are only disturbances to the sincere execution of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is undoubtedly Krishna himself, and he is always non-different from Srimati Radharani. But the emotion technically called Vipralamba Bhav, which the Lord adopted for confidential reasons, should not be disturbed in the name of service. A mundaner should not unnecessarily intrude into the affairs of transcendence and thereby displease the Lord. One must always be on guard against this sort of devotional anomaly. A devotee is not meant to create disturbances to Krishna. As Srila Rupa Goswami has explained, devotional service is anukulyena, or favorable to Krishna. Acting unfavorably toward Krishna is not devotion. Kamsa was the enemy of Krishna. He always thought of Krishna, but he thought of him as an enemy. One should always avoid such unfavorable so-called service.
So, Prabhupada says here, the emotion technically called Vipralamba Bhav, which the Lord adopted for confidential reasons, should not be disturbed in the name of service. So this was the point that my Guru Maharaj is making. Let's go back to that. Anyway, he says, therefore Prabhupada said, don't disturb the mood of Gauranga. So we should understand something about the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As part of our magazine, we compiled a series of photos, a photo essay, of which I've got, I don't know, maybe it's 20 or 30% of the pictures from that article. I wanted to share with you today. Just go over it real quick. When we did our slideshow recently in Budapest, I told stories, especially long stories about these deities, some very long stories. These are the deities of Gauridas Pandit, and they're also worshipped by Hridaya Chaitanya, and there's amazing stories of both of them. These are some of the very first deities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I won't get into those other deities so much. The first deities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was worshipped by his grandmother, Shobha Devi. And that deity manifested when he was 16 years old. And that deity is still there today. It's another story. But this deity of Gauridas Pandit, these Gaurnitai deities, are generally thought of by most devotees as the first deities of Mahaprabhu, although it's not actually a fact. We might also say that the deity of Dhameshwar Mahaprabhu came before these deities, in the sense that that deity, which didn't manifest in one sense until after Mahaprabhu took sannyas, just before, and he gave that deity to Vishnu Priya, his wife, that deity came from the original name tree that Mahaprabhu appeared under. So we could say that that deity appeared before these. These deities, on one occasion, Mahaprabhu rode across the Ganga to visit Gauridas Pandit, he and Nityananda Prabhu, and they spent some time there. And when they were leaving, Gauridas said, no, you stay. And they said, look, we really got to go. We have things to do. It's Kali Yuga. We have to spread the holy name. And they said, no, you can't go. You have to stay. So then Mahaprabhu ordered some devotees to make deities of himself and Nityananda Prabhu, which I presume must have taken a few days. So they spent some time there. And then Mahaprabhu told Gauridas, so here you have these deities. These deities are not different from us. You have a good time now. We got to go. And he started leaving. And Gauridas said, no, 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 you can have the deities, I want you. So Mahaprabhu said, okay. And then he and Nityananda Prabhu suddenly stopped moving, and they became the deities, and then the deities started leaving. And when Gauridas Pandit saw that, he started running after Gaurnitai, who previously were the deities. No, 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 you got to stop. And then suddenly the deities stopped, and Gaurnitai stopped. They became deities again, and the former deities became the Gaurnitai. And they said, and this happened a few times until finally Mahaprabhu said, so what do you want? These deities are non-different. He said, I don't want the deities, I want you. So according to the local tradition, there in Ambika Kona, which is the first place Krishna Kuni and I went when we started associating, the original Gaurnitai entered into the temple and became the deities, and the deities left. So these are those deities who later entered into the heart of Hridaya Chaitanya right in front of Gauridas Pandit. That's a whole nother story. So these deities are certainly worshipped with no peacock feather, never have been. And then we have the deities of Mahesh Pandit. Mahesh Pandit, let's see if I can show this. Mahesh Pandit was a grandson of Gauridas Pandit. And these are his deities, which are also still worshipped today in West Bengal, in Shishi Gaurnitai. Let's see if I can just do this in a different way. Can you see these deities now? This is Gaur Gadadhar Champahati in the gold dress. Okay, so I don't have to turn it on and off. Maybe even I can. Yeah, I can. That's really cool. Look at that. Okay, so these deities were worshipped by Vaninath Mishra, a brother of Gadadhar Pandit, and they're still worshipped today in the Gaudiya Mutt temple there at Champahati. There's a beautiful story of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. In front of these deities one year during a Navadip Mandal Parikrama, he was giving a lecture, and he was speaking about his desire for someone to spread Krishna consciousness in the West. And there was a devotee there, Babaji, his disciple, was worshiping the deities. Nayananda Das Babaji was his name. And he happened to be a good friend of one of his Grihastha godbrothers. His name was Abhay Charnaravinda. You may have heard of him. And he said, well, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was giving this lecture, speaking to everybody, all the Gaudiya Mutt devotees, about his desire to preach in the West. He was looking very intently in one direction. And Nayananda Das Babaji noticed it. And then he saw that, what is this? He thought he would be looking at the sannyasis. He wasn't. And he was looking in a particular way. And so Nayananda Das Babaji looked to see who he was looking at. And he was looking directly at our Srila Prabhupada there in front of these deities in Champahati. So these Gaur Gadadhar are still there today. These are the deities of Gaurnitai, which were worshipped by Srinivasacharya and still present today. Very beautiful deities in Jajidram. This picture was taken by Indradyumna Maharaj. And these are the Gaurnitai deities who were worshipped by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur in Denur. Vrindavan Das Thakur, of course, is the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat. And this is Sri Sri Gaur Gadadhar, who worshipped by Saranga Murari. And Saranga Murari was a devotee who was brought back to life again by Saranga Thakur and became known as Saranga Murari. It's a long story, but he's a wonderful associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these are the deities of Mahaprabhu. It's actually the Panchatattva. These were established by Maharaj Prataparudra in Kathak, which was his palace at that time in Orissa. And this, you can see all 5 of the deities here in this picture. Quite bhavuk, ecstatic deities. And this is a picture that I took personally. This is Gaur Gadadhar, who worshipped by Narahari Sakar. Narahari Sakar, you may not know much about him. I don't know. He was one of the earliest, some say the earliest biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before Vrindavan Das Thakur, before Murari Gupta wrote their books. Narahari Sakar was writing about the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the form of padas or songs. You know him probably more by his disciple, who was Lochan Das Thakur, the author of Chaitanya Mangal. So at one point, he came to Jagannath Puri, And these deities are there near to Markandeshwar Sarovar, and it's called Markandeshwar Sahi. And we'd be very happy to take you there if you come with us to Jagannath Puri. This picture was taken maybe 10 years ago or something by myself. And now they have a new temple, which is quite beautiful. And they're repainted. They look very, very nice. So let's see here. This is a deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'll tell you that there's also a deity of Nityananda Prabhu. But anyway, this is in Dhaneshwar, Orissa. When Narottam Das Thakur was on his way to Jagannath Puri, he stopped there and he didn't have a tongue scraper, and he stayed for the night to rest. In the morning, he went to brush his teeth and things. He didn't have a tongue scraper, so he took a branch of a tree and split it and used that as a tongue scraper. And then he stuck that in the ground, and it became a tree, which grew up there, and that tree is still there to this day. And these deities of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, I don't have a picture of him right here, were established by Narottam Das Thakur at that time. So now we're going to the deities of Bhaktivedanta Thakur and Swananda Sukata Kunj in Mayapur. This is Sri Gour Govinda. And this deity who I appreciate very much. Let me see if I can get a better shot of this deity. This is Sri Radha Madhav and Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And I'd like to call your attention to the outrageous smile on the face of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is a very special deity for the devotees. It's actually the very first deity, the deity of Mahaprabhu. Radha Madhav and Mahaprabhu were all established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. But the deity of Mahaprabhu was the very first deity in the Gaudiya Mutt. And it was this deity that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati sat in front of for 9 years. When he was chanting 3 lakhs a day, he chanted 1 billion names. He sat in front of this deity of Mahaprabhu and chanted 3 lakhs a day. And I think it has something to do with the smile on his face. So I have to stop that for just a second, because I wanted to blow that one up, so I had to use a different means. And then we've got what may very well be the first deity in ISKCON, which not exactly in ISKCON, it's before ISKCON existed. This is the deity of Mahaprabhu, which was established by Srila Prabhupada in Jhansi when he made the League of Devotees. Now this deity today, you can see him, he's in the Keshaji Gaudiya Mutt in Mathura. Srila Prabhupada, when the League of Devotees closed down in Jhansi, before Srila Prabhupada went to America, he gave this deity of Mahaprabhu to his godbrother and friend, Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Maharaj, and you can still find him today there in that temple. Now I want to go on to the next deity. This is what probably is the first deity of Mahaprabhu in ISKCON. This is the Panchatattva. This deity was painted by Jadharani. And Jadharani later commented on this painting. She said that Srila Prabhupada practically took her hand and made the painting himself. Now, if you look at some of the figures in the painting, well, Prabhupada told her that this is the Panchatattva. And he said this with the folded hands here in the back. Can you see my little cursor? I'm moving. Okay. This devotee with the folded hands is Haridas Thakur. And this is Mukunda playing the mridanga. And his 4 sons in the background. There's actually 5 persons there. I'm not sure who all 5 of those are. But anyway, she said that Prabhupada practically took her hand and made the painting. If you look at Haridas Thakur, if you look at Mukunda, and you see some of the older paintings of Jadharani, this was kind of more her level of expertise at that time. We visited 26 2nd Avenue some years ago, Krishna Kunda and I, and there's still some original paintings of hers on the wall. And she's maybe the most expert artist in Gaudiya Vaishnavism today, so I don't feel bad saying this so much, but if you look at her early paintings, it looks like something that your 4-year-old niece would have painted or something. They're Very, very simple, the early paintings. But this particular painting, I find it very striking to look at it. If you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incredibly sweet face of Nityananda and Gadadhar and Srivas, this to me, this is Srila Prabhupada. This is Prabhupada's vision of Mahaprabhu. So this painting was worshipped as a deity in 26 Second Avenue. Later, when they opened the first temple in Los Angeles, this picture was sent there, and this was the deity in Los Angeles for some time. Later, it went to Laguna Beach before they installed the deities of the Panchatattva there, and the deity was worshipped as a deity there for some time. And it's a long story. Today, it's in Washington State, with a devotee friend of ours. So this is a picture here of Srila Prabhupada on 26 Second Avenue, I presume. I'm actually not sure. I don't know whose trap set this is, a drum set, Srila Prabhupada. But we can see Jadharani's painting with Srila Prabhupada there. So this is our first deity in ISKCON. And we see the mood of Srila Prabhupada with those particular deities. So I'd like to go back now and do some more reading here from Srila Prabhupada's teachings and also from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Prabhupada comments in his purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 710. He says, while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is trying to enjoy as a devotee, one should not disturb him by addressing him as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there's a beautiful purport. This is CC Ancha 1414, where Kaviraj Goswami says, Radhikara Bhavi Prabhur Shuddha Abhiman, Se Bhavi Apanaki Hoy Radha Gyan. Srimati Radharani's emotions after seeing Uddhava exactly correspond to those of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He always conceived of himself in her position and sometimes thought that he was Srimati Radharani herself. In the purport, when Srila Prabhupada, this is a little note, scholarly kind of note, when Prabhupada starts a purport and he says Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, or he says it in his Amrita Bhava, he says this, it means that probably the bulk of the purport, and perhaps the entire purport, is a translation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Prabhupada comments here. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the purport of the word Abhiman, or self-conception, is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought himself to be in the position of Srimati Radharani and was always ready to render service in that way. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, he assumed the complexion and emotions of Srimati Radharani and remained in that status. He never assumed the complexion or status of Krishna. Of course, Krishna wanted to experience the role of Srimati Radharani. That is the original cause of his assuming the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, pure Vaishnavas never disturb Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conception of being Srimati Radharani. Unfortunately, at the present time, a group of so-called devotees maintain that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the enjoyer and that they are enjoyers as well. They've actually deviated from devotional service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested himself to show that cultivation of love for Krishna and separation is the easiest way of success for all living entities. Despite this fact, there are some theosophists who declare that because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such cultivation is easy for him, but difficult for the living entity, and that one can therefore approach Krishna in any way he likes. To nullify this idea, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrated practically how one can achieve love of Krishna by adopting Srimati Radharani's mood in separation from Krishna. And then there's a beautiful letter here, which Bhanu Biharni, would you like to read these comparative studies?
Okay, where does it start? The green or?
Green, yeah.
These comparative studies on the life of Krishna and Ramachandra are very intricate, but the basic principle is that Ramachandra appeared as an ideal king and Krishna appeared as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although there is no difference between the two, a similar example is Lord Chaitanya. He appeared as a devotee and not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he is Krishna himself. So we should accept the Lord's mood in particular appearances, and we should worship him in that mood. Sometimes Lord Chaitanya, because he is Krishna himself, somebody worships him in the same manner as Krishna. But Krishna was in the role of enjoyer, and Lord Chaitanya is in the role of being enjoyed. So the party known as Gauranga Nagari, they are considered to be deviated from pure devotional service on account of Lord Chaitanya given the same facility of Krishna, which he did not like. Our service mood should be compatible to the attitude of the Lord, not that we should overlap the attitude of Krishna to Lord Chaitanya, or Lord Chaitanya to Krishna, or Krishna to Ramachandra, or Ramachandra to Krishna.
So beautiful letter to Satsvarup Maharaj in 1968. It's interesting. Later, let's go ahead and read this next, and I'll make some comments on it. Ujjwala, would you like to read the yellow on Ekadashi?
On Ekadashi, we can offer the deity grains. Oh yes, but not Guru. Ekadashi observed by Jiva Tattva, not by Vishnu. We are fasting for clearing our material disease, but Radha Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also may not be offered grains because he is playing the part of a devotee. Only Radha Krishna, Jagannath, can be offered grains. Otherwise, Guru Gauranga, no.
So this was a room conversation in Tokyo with Banu Maharaj, one of Prabhupada's early disciples who traveled with Prabhupada later in India. It's interesting to note that in the first copy of the Pancharatrika Pradeep, the ISKCON deity worship book, they gave a footnote and they recommended that the peacock feather not be offered in the temples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They said because to keep it in line with what Srila Prabhupada gave himself, and also in line with Srila Prabhupada had the illustrations done in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's no paintings of Mahaprabhu with a peacock feather, including in any of the paintings which are worshipped formally as deities of the Panchatattva. Why don't we go down to this next one? This is a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's Chaitanya Bhagavat. And Himanti, would you like to read this from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati?
Sure, Prabhu. The word Sarva Parikare indicates that the 5 types of Krishna devotees neither considered the incarnation of Vipralambra, Sri Gaurasundar, as the object of Madhura Ras, nor did they assist him in conjugal affairs in the course of his magnanimous pastimes. Rather, they nourished his feelings of separation from Krishna by helping him cultivate those mellows. Those who want to contradict the Gaura pastimes of the supreme shelter Krishna by putting a flute or cowherd stick in Gaurasundar's hands, imposing the mood of a parama on him, or considering him the charioteer of Arjuna, can never be counted amongst Gaura's associates or servants.
So, therefore, we find in all the temples of the Gaudiya Math, they've never offered a peacock feather to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Radha, especially in his pastimes as a sannyasi. I can share with you a few of the paintings that some of which we printed in our last Bindu magazine. This is something from West Bengal, which we came across at the book fair some years ago in Kolkata. Here's another painting. This is by Chitrendranath Majumdar, who's done in the 1950s. He's considered to be an exalted devotee and an amazing artist. I very much like his colors and his style. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Bhav Samadhi. He called it Mahaprabhu Air Bhava Samadhi painting. And it illustrates Mahaprabhu's mood in separation. And this is a painting which I don't know the artist of. I would love to find it out. It's obviously Bengali. The script is in Bengali of the painting. And it has a few verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Mahaprabhu at Rath Yatra. And we see a shower of tears coming from his eyes, like from a syringe, as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the devotees doing ecstatic kirtan and offering obeisances, and very, very ecstatic picture illustrating the mood of Mahaprabhu. And here's another painting also by an artist I'm not aware of. I think this is a little more contemporary though, but I would suspect, I don't think it's so these days. It's not done by any artist that I'm aware of, but I don't think it's any later than the 1950s or 1960s. And we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood of worship and Christian separation. Here's another painting, which we also got from the book fair in Kolkata some years ago, of Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi. And here's another painting, also done by Bhaktisiddhanta Majumdar in the 1950s. And this is Mahaprabhu just after taking sannyas, and we see Sachi Mata in this painting crying and doing separation from her son. So this is a mood of Mahaprabhu. Sometimes devotees, they express different doubts about this. A common question that we get is, and I personally, I just like to make a quick comment that I really don't care how devotees worship the Lord. It has become a controversy in different circles, largely because some of my godbrothers were pushing things, I think. But it needn't be a controversy. It's just a simple fact. The simple fact is that historically it's basically not done except amongst the Gauranga Nagaris and a few upper Sampradayas. It certainly wasn't done by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, nor was it done apparently by Srila Prabhupada before in Jhansi or in the early paintings in ISKCON. But at a certain point, Srila Prabhupada instructed privately, it was never recorded, but he privately instructed Janani Vasprabhu, and some other time he instructed Malati Mataji. I spoke to both of them about this, that they should put a peacock feather in the worship of Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada didn't explain to them why, nor did Srila Prabhupada make any comments that this is for all the temples, for all time. He didn't say anything like that. It was never written down. It was never even recorded. But these are wonderful devotees, and we certainly accept the instruction Srila Prabhupada gave for them. And it's not, that's not a controversy either. Srila Prabhupada spoke that. So if someone wants to do that, for whatever reason, I don't know. It's good when we do deity worship that we have a reason. It's always occurred to me that perhaps Srila Prabhupada's reason was that he wanted to encourage people in their understanding that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. That would seem likely. And it might be beneficial then for some Indians, especially who relate to the peacock feather as a symbol of Krishna. But for most people off the street in Ypsilanti or Detroit or in Russia or in Paris or London or wherever in the world, it's not that common people, I don't think, are going to walk in the temple and see, who is that? Oh, he has a peacock feather. It must be God. I don't think it works like that. But Srila Prabhupada had some reason. It wasn't something which he made hard and fast, and it wasn't something that he instructed in the paintings. It wasn't something that he did in Jhansi with the deity of Mahaprabhu. Sometimes devotees, they ask the question, why is it that we put tulsi leaves on the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu if we're not supposed to put peacock feathers? Well, we should, first of all, again, we should do whatever our temple authorities do. We should follow the standard of the temple. Different temples in different places in India and elsewhere, they have different standards. And whatever the standard is that's set up for the deity, that's what should be followed. And hopefully they have some philosophical reason for what they do. In any case, when we offer tulsi leaves to the feet of the deity, if we consider the matter carefully, is a subtle but important difference between doing that and decorating the deity or dressing the deity. It's like if I decide that I want to worship Ujjvala Prabhu, okay, and I'm going to dress him up, and I decide I want to get really creative, so I'm going to dress him like in a clown suit with a big rubber round nose and a big orange hair, something like that. He may not appreciate it. Bhanavi Harni may not appreciate it either. I would be doing that for myself, and it wouldn't be right. He has a particular mood in his dress. When we dress someone, we dress that person according to that individual person's mood. When we worship them, though, the worship is not that oh, here I am. I know you want to be worshipped. I know you need to be worshipped. Yeah, I know you're wanting this. That's not the mood at all. That worship is done for our benefit. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in one commentary, he notes that when the deity is worshipped, everyone has some desire to request from the Lord. In the Lalita Madhav, there's a story about Radharani worshipping a deity of Krishna in Nava Vrindavan garden. And we find that even Srimati Radharani, when she's worshipping the deity, she also has some prayer, some petition. And her prayer to that deity was, please may you become a living, moving person. And for those of you who've read Lalita Madhav, you may recall that it's a wonderful story because that actually wasn't the deity, it was Krishna acting like a deity. But Radharani thought he was a deity and was praying, may you become, oh deity, may you become actually Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, which he was. But that was the prayer of Srimati Radharani. So when we worship the deity, we're worshiping the deity for ourselves. That worship is my expression of devotion. It's my expression of offering something to the Lord. So we put tulsi leaves on the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, understanding that he's Vishnu Tattva. But I'm not doing that because that's his dress. When we dress Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we could, because he's Krishna himself, we could put a flute in his hands. But we don't do that. We could put a bow and arrow in his hands. And there are deities, of course, as Sadbhuj Mahaprabhu, there's some on our slideshow also, which I didn't show today, where he, of course, two of the hands are holding a bow and an arrow. That's Sadbhuj Mahaprabhu. That's there. We could do that with the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's also Lord Ramachandra. But we don't do that. We don't dress the deity of Krishna as Lord Ramachandra. We could do that also. They're non-different. But we don't do that because they have a different mood. And my Guru Maharaj's purpose wasn't to create any kind of difficulties, any kind of troubles. I especially in the climate in the world today, aside from Russia and Ukraine, aside from the Democrats and Republicans in America, we've got wars going on amongst the devotees, even the conservatives and the liberals. And what really hurts my heart is not that there are differences. Differences are healthy. Differences are something which makes for a good society. Prabhupada spoke about unity in diversity. That's how he saw our movement. And let's not forget that Srila Prabhupada, his vision was that the Krishna consciousness movement would take over the world. As I was pointing out recently to a couple sannyasi friends, we were having some reading together. I asked him, I said, so what does this mean? I said, does it mean I think it means that some people who start practicing Krishna consciousness are going to be, some of the ladies will wear a burqa. And some of them will wear a bikini. Because that's just what it means. If the whole planet is going to start becoming Krishna conscious, I don't expect they're all going to take up dhotis and saris and that particular dress right away. But serious devotees who want to understand and follow the mood of Krishna in Vrindavan, we wear this dhoti and we wear these saris because it reminds us of the Braj culture. It helps us to meditate on Krishna in Vrindavan. That's one of the primary reasons we dress in that way. But we find in Jaiva Dharma, in the case of the Mayavadi sannyasi, they were calling him sannyasi Thakur, that when he became a Vaishnava and he moved to Navadvip with the devotees, that after a few weeks of chanting japa and doing kirtan with the devotees and things, he was feeling a little uncomfortable with his Mayavadi sannyas cloth. And he wanted to put on the dress of the Vaishnavas there, which was Babaji cloth, which was lungi and Gaudiya Vaishnava tilak and things. And the devotees forbade him. He'd already taken initiation even from his guru as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but they told him no. They said, you should cultivate what's on the inside first, and then that'll manifest on the outside. So it's not that we're interested in changing everyone's dress, but we want the whole world to be Krishna conscious. And if the whole world becomes Krishna conscious, you can guarantee if you think that things are complicated right now amongst devotees trying to get along with each other, just wait till the different groups of Muslims become Gaudiya Vaishnavas and the Jews in Israel become Gaudiya Vaishnavas also. There's going to be so many differences in moods, and that's okay. We should understand that it's perfectly fine. There's going to be different moods amongst different devotees. And our purpose in presenting this discussion today, we especially want to try to understand what my Guru Maharaj is speaking in his book, Embankment of Separation. It's also a little personal for me, I can tell you, because he gave me one of his last instructions was that he told me that you should write about Mahaprabhu and the peacock feather. But he told me to write about it. He never told me that I should do politics about it or that we should fight everybody about it. We're not interested in jihad, but we're interested in enlightening the devotees and enlightening them in the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that was one of his main purposes with Embankment of Separation. And that's one of our main purposes in producing this magazine, this issue we called Understanding the Mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I want to stop there. And I'd like to ask Hemanti if you have any reflections that you'd like to share with us today. Maybe we could even see if you can turn on the camera.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I think what really stood out for me today was serving the deity according to the mood of the deity. I think I never ever thought of it, and today is just something that, stood out for me.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? We don't think so much about deity worship in this world, but most people have thought about relationships, especially between men and women and like that. And we've seen so many relationships not work because either the husband or the wife can't think about the mood of the other person. And we understand that. That's just nonsense. And famously, I like to comment that a boy gets attracted to a girl and he thinks, wow, she's so beautiful, she's this and that. But he doesn't think that she has parents. He doesn't think that she has friends. He doesn't think that she likes to watch television and certain shows, or she likes to read certain books, she likes certain food, she likes to dress in a certain way. He's only seeing her through the lens of his lust, his desires, and we understand that's very shallow, that's very foolish, and it's not conducive for a good relationship. So we can say the same thing about understanding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's so very, very important. But because most of us are approaching in a kind of selfish way, subtly or grossly, we're just thinking, what is the deity going to do for me? And therefore, when we come before the deity, we pray, oh, my dear Mahaprabhu, please help me. I don't know what to do. I have so much problems. My father is being bad to me, or my friends don't appreciate me, or I need to get better grades in school. I need more money, or this or that. There's so many things. And I'm not disagreeing with that, although that's not the highest prayer. We should pray to the Lord whatever's in our heart. But the fact that we're praying something like that is indicative that we're not thinking of the Lord's pleasure. Srimati Mataji, who is very dear to us, with the Vaishnavi who lives in Vrindavan, she was commenting recently, I appreciated one of her classes, she was saying that a very good exercise is go to the temple and just do some bhajan, especially when no one's around. And you just do that for the pleasure of the deities. Or you just go there and you chant japa. Maybe you're not a singer or whatever. You just go there and just chant japa just for the pleasure of the deities. And especially with some extra rounds or something. And you'll really develop more of a relationship with the Lord. So, anything else you want to share, Hemanti?
Just I like that you said, we should speak to the Lord what's in our heart, because sometimes we do approach the Lord with desires that we have, whether it's material or spiritual, and yeah.
Therefore, the Bhagavatam says, Akama sarva kama va moksha kama. that whether you have no desires, akama, or sarva kama, you want it all. You're like Madonna and girls want to have fun. Whatever it is your desire, you should approach the Lord with that. And example, of course, is Dhruva Maharaj, who came and he wanted a kingdom greater than his grandfather, Lord Brahma, which he finally got. He got Dhruva Lok, which is a spiritual planet within the mature universe. But after he had darshan of the Lord, then he prayed, "What is this? I was looking for some broken glass, but I've gotten a diamond, I've gotten a jewel." So we should be honest and approach the Lord with whatever's in our heart, but understand, at least philosophically, what the Lord desires. But it's one thing to understand philosophically that my spouse likes to eat this particular thing. It's one thing to understand that theoretically, but at the same time, we have another type taste in food that we like better, so we don't pay so much attention to what our spouse likes. But at least we know something about it. So in the same way, we should know something about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood, even if we can't integrate it into our heart because we're so selfish. Okay. Thank you, Hemanti. Bana Biharani, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna. I'm just so grateful to be back after a couple weeks. It's really this kata and your association and the association of the devotees is really light in my life. So I'm feeling very grateful. Thank you. And I was just thinking about how I'm also very grateful for this conception you've given me about Mahaprabhu and the peacock feather and his desire, what pleases him. And I feel that it's helped me a lot in my little deity worship that I do. And but I appreciate the kind of well-rounded presentation you give, and I'm also trying to see that if devotees don't have this conception, they're still offering what they feel, what they know is best, or what they think is respectful. And so, yeah, I'm just thinking about
They're
that.
not necessarily demons.
No.
That's good. In actuality, it's really not. In one sense, it's not. It is a big thing, in one sense, but in another sense, it's not such a big thing. There's a lot of serious things in our movement to disagree about and go on with, and we have so many other people in the world, Mayavadis and atheists and demons that we can fight with. Why quarrel with devotees whether you put a feather on the head of the deity or not? There's a reason behind things. My Guru Maharaj, I think, mostly was using it as something to help devotees to understand the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's also why we presented the slideshow, and to see historically that this is a tradition. But it's not that we're trying to do jihad or something like that. Let people do what people want to do. It really hurts my heart when I see the disregard that devotees sometimes have for each other and the pride they have. Well, I have this best conception, and you have to do exactly like me. It would be a very boring world. In fact, it would be a very frightening world if everybody did the way I did. You know, I wouldn't want to be in a world like that. There should be so much diversity, and that's something we appreciate. I can see most of you, I think, have come kind of a liberal background, at least our American friends here. And the liberals, especially in America, they like this, what's the word for it, globalism, where everybody, basically what it means is everybody speaks American English and they all like Mickey Mouse and McDonald's and pizza. and that's the whole world vision today. But that's kind of I'm poking fun at it. But there's also some noble ideas that everybody's on the same page, and we visit different countries and different places, and we can speak with them and like that. But on the other side, amongst the conservatives, there's a very good reason for concern, and that is that they see that cultures are being lost. For example, if you want to Google something which is a little mundane, what is it that the movie, a prize-winning movie about education called Schooling the World. Schooling the World. It won a lot of awards. It is an excellent movie. It's not good. It's an excellent documentary. If you want to understand something about the history of education in a way which is very similar to what Srila Prabhupada spoke about. And it speaks about how the big banks and big corporations have used education all over the world to make money, and in so doing, they're basically wiping out cultures. And it's training everybody to use cell phones and computers. And you go to countries like Myanmar, Burma, and other places, parts of India, parts of Nepal, and others. And the local people, the young people, they don't know how to milk the cow. They don't know what herbs to take if they get sick. They don't know how to build a house. Some of them don't know how to cook. You have people in America, you guys know it very well. I knew college students who once a week would go to visit their parents so their mother would wash their clothes, because they didn't know how to wash their clothes themselves. And they didn't even know how to cook. They just go to the cafeteria or something. Maybe they could make ramen noodles. And that's about it. So bad is the cultural understanding today. So, and that's because of this particular slant on education that we have today. And so the result of that is we're losing cultures all over the world. And that's one of the big concerns of the conservative, the people who like to address themselves as conservative. Personally, when I think of these different differences of conservatives and the liberals, I like to think that all of us have conservative aspects and all of us have liberal aspects, and to try to just label ourselves as one or the other is not, really doesn't work. Srila Prabhupada was the most liberal person I've ever heard of. He was concerned sometimes about a little insect in his room. When I asked the devotees, please pick up the insect and put him outside, he must be hungry. But Srila Prabhupada was also the most conservative and for regulated principles and things which would just make common people faint. And he was both things at the same time. And we also, I don't think we should identify ourselves one way or the other. And I'm just mentioning this right now because sometimes devotees, they pick up things like this peacock feather thing, and they want to use it as a battle and show that I know the best. I'm hearing from Gour Govinda Maharaja and his followers, and we know better than you guys, we're better than you. That's the attitude of a child. Children, they know better than everybody else, and whatever I'm doing is the best. Amar Guru, Jagat Guru. That's their mood. And that's really not the mood of Mahaprabhu's line. It's not good for ISKCON, good for our society. Thank you, Bana. Appreciate it. Ujjwala, would you like to share anything today?
There were a couple of really, it's also very nice to be back, Prabhu. Thank you for continuing to facilitate and speak some Katha and help us to enter into Gour Govinda Maharaja's mood and understanding and the wonderful things that he has given to us. It's very much appreciated from my side because he was very much, it still is, but especially in a particular period, 2 or 3 years into my practice, he was very influential in kind of kickstarting my devotional life. So I very much appreciate these sessions. It's hard to, because it's just kind of natural to jump off of from where you were speaking, Prabhu, because that's the freshest thing. And I'm just thinking about the paradox of Srila Prabhupada and how he was so liberal and also so conservative and so attractive because he was both things in the best ways at the same time. And how there's kind of a hubris in declaring that I understand Srila Prabhupada. And it's just reminding me of what you just said, in that it's very childish to go and kind of bandy my ideas like a weapon against everybody else and say, I know what Srila Prabhupada wanted. And yeah, I always appreciate hearing people's nuanced approach to that conversation and the level of reverence that's there, and just saying that he was really a monumental figure that one has to give a lot of thought to understand the mood and heart of. And that makes me think about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the beginning of your conversation. And one thing I appreciated that you said was the difference between the mood of who we're worshiping and the necessity of worshiping them. And I find that to be a really nice way to harmonize this whole peacock feather thing. And, some people doing it, some people not doing it, the tulsi leaves on the feet. And yeah, I was really appreciating that. And anyway, I don't want to keep waffling on. I have a tendency to do.
What's really very important to me personally, I like to share with the devotees, is that we should try to understand Srila Prabhupada's mood. Prabhupada loved all of his disciples. And some of them, I don't mean to be offensive, but some of them were just weird. And some of them are still weird. But Prabhupada loved them. And they did so much for Srila Prabhupada. And some of them were fallen, some of them were wonderful, some of them were this or that and the other. And we, as a group, trying to follow Srila Prabhupada, we need to learn that mood. One way I look at it, one analogy I look at to help me understand how I should try to behave within our family, our devotional family, is how I behave with my seminal family. If I go home for Christmas or something, I have an uncle who's got a gun collection, and he still thinks that Trump won the election, and he during the riots, the black riots in Los Angeles, he wanted to get in the car and go there and shoot some. He used a bad word, shoot some black people, and stuff. And the guy's just really, really crazy. But he's my uncle, and I love him. I love him, but the guy is completely crazy. I don't hang out with him. I don't listen to him. I have a very different understanding. But he's my uncle. And in our family, our devotional family, we're also going to have some people who are just completely crazy. And that's good. That shows that Prabhupada's mission is there for everyone. And as some of our friends from Ukraine, some of Prabhupada's disciples and followers are in Russia. Or some of them in Ukraine, some of them in China, some of them in America. And then we have different moods. Some of them I have some Russian friends, devotee friends, who think that Mr. Putin was sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I don't relate to that personally, but that's not so important to me. What's important is that we can cooperate together. So I think of that analogy about the family. I think about the analogy of children. In the same way, if you ever teach children, if you're ever around your nieces or nephews or something, and children, they're screwed up a lot of times. They make mistakes. They're silly. They're stupid. They fall down. They do silly things. But it wouldn't even occur to most people to make fun of them. You're just a kid. You just love them, and it's just who they are. So the same way with devotees. It's not that we see, this person is so angry, this or that. That's just an aspect of their material conditioning, which will definitely go away with Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, they're kind of like a child. And I just overlook that, and I just love them. And I'm more amused by their anger and the behavior like that than I take, personal affront with it or anything.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Just on that note, actually, it's just occurring to me that even what you're saying, it's just what any baseline cultured person does with the world. Because it's not like we walk around the world looking for people to fight with. Certainly, any person kind of knows that most people I run into aren't going to agree with me equivocally across the board on everything. And I think it's interesting that just from my own experience as a member of the Hare Krishna movement and living in the ashram, going through, probably the most isolated version of Krishna consciousnness, it's easy to slip into the idea that everyone actually is supposed to agree with me because of being given that very insular bubble. And I feel like it's a certain type of maturity that one has to develop, or that one can even lose when they join, where they now think like, oh, I've got to fight with everybody who's wrong about any particular point. But really, it's like the baseline of culture that you walk around knowing that you don't start a fight over every little issue that comes up, because people are people. And I like your analogy of the family. I've often thought of it that way too, that people just, you naturally defer a certain level of respect and appreciation for your family again, for the fact that someone is just a sovereign entity. They can believe what they want to believe as long as they're not trying to shoot me. I appreciate that.
It's really, really important. When we do that for Srila Prabhupada, we do that for our gurus. You know, I have god brothers. Honestly, I don't associate with very many of my god brothers. They have a different mood, but I really feel genuine love and appreciation for them because they've gotten mercy from my Guru Maharaj. So I should feel that without a question. But it doesn't mean that I have to hang out with all of them. There's another kind of danger, too, that occurs to me in our society when we see devotees. It's one thing when we first join and we're just trying, especially for those of us from the West, Chaitanya Prabhu and Himanti, I think maybe you come from Indian families, you have some of this culture a little bit in your family before you came. But for those of us strictly coming from the West, it's such a shock, it's such a difference. In the beginning, it's just, we're just trying to learn to put on a sari or a dhoti and put on tilak and four principles, and we're trying to figure out those kind of things. But then after some time, we start taking on something a little more sophisticated. We become an expert kirtaniya. We become an expert cook. We become, even worse, we become a Sanskrit scholar. Bhakti Shastra degree. Or even worse, we become an international preacher. And then we have this upadi, this designation, this label hanging around our neck. I'm a temple president, I'm this or that. And then all of a sudden, you're quite often our dormant, demoniac desires to be supreme, they come forward in this way. I know better than all these guys because I know Sanskrit, because I'm the temple president, because I'm a worldwide preacher. And we want to try to start pushing things into the people. And we lose sight of the fact that actually, I'm just screwed up. I'm just a child in Krishna consciousness. I really don't know anything. I'm not realized at all. I have so many material desires. I'm suffering so much. And we lose sight of reality. And we start living in an illusion. And it becomes absurd. And so many devotees, then they're living in that illusion. And they have these little masks that they're holding on a wooden handle in front of their face. That I am a pujari, I am this, I'm that, and that's our identity. When we're actually much, much more than that. Maybe my service is a pujari, but actually I'm just a screwed up, fallen pujari with material desires and whatever. But I am what I am. And that's just what I am. And I'm coming to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm bringing all my baggage too, because that's all that I've got to offer him. You know, I want to reach in my bag and pull out some nice, beautiful silk cloth and golden diamonds and jewelry to offer the Lord. But I reach in there and I just got some clothes from some bum who was living on the street or something, you know, some torn, dirty cloth. That's just all that I've got. All right. Thank you, Prabhu. Chaitanya Prabhu, do you want to share anything with us?
On that point, Prabhu, I mean, it's nice to see this balanced outlook. Oftentimes devotees have this concept that just because I disagree with you, I'd stop respecting you, but it's not the case. You can still continue respecting, as you put it, Prabhu, regardless of whether you disagree with a particular point or anything of that sort. I had a couple of thoughts around, or just some questions around some elements. In the beginning, you were talking about when many devotees talk about Lord Chaitanya and as a Karuna avatar. So what is that link then with him being Karuna avatar with that sweetness of love? What is the connection there? Is it him in his madness, so to speak, that is giving out all the mercy, or how do we meant to understand the linkage?
We spoke about this in some previous sessions. You may recall that Parasya Shakti Vividaiva Shruyate, it's described in Shastra, that the Lord has multifarious potencies. One of those potencies is the Karuna Shakti. And Prabhupada notes in Nectar Devotion that the personification of the Karuna Shakti is Radharani. She is the Karuna Shakti of the Lord. Now, generally, the Lord, with his multi-potencies, he controls the Karuna Shakti. He has his Icha Shakti, his personal desire potency. And that Karuna Shakti is kind of kept out of sight because the Karuna Shakti by nature is so merciful And this is one reason why Manavala Muni, in his commentary on Valmiki Ramayana, Manavala Muni is one of the famous leading acharyas in the Ramanuja Sampradaya. And his commentary on Valmiki Ramayana, he explains that, he raises a question, why is it that Lord Ramachandra did not kill Ravan in front of Sita? And some of you probably heard me speak about this before. It's a great analogy, great example. Because Ravan had offended her. She's a Kshatriya lady. Lord Ramachandra is a Kshatriya. It's natural that he should kill Ravan in front of Sita and thereby preserve her honor. But he didn't. Why didn't he? He said, because Sita is the Karuna Shakti of the Lord. And if Sita had been present, she would have stopped him. No, don't kill him. He's a bad guy. He's really nonsense, really nasty, but you should show some mercy. And so he couldn't kill Ravan in front of Sita. So she's a Karuna Shakti. And for that reason, Krishna kept Radharani hidden as a secret in Dwapara Yuga. And practically nobody knows about Radharani. Her name's not even mentioned in the Bhagavatam. And it wasn't until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came that we understood something about Radharani. So what's special about Mahaprabhu? He's Mahabhadanyaya Avatar, because he's the Karuna Shakti, because he's Radha Baba Duty, he has the mood and complexion of Radharani. But the difference is now the Icha Shakti is no longer controlling the Karuna Shakti. In Mahaprabhu, that Karuna Shakti can just go and do whatever. And so he's in the mood of Radharani. So yes, there's definitely a connection between that Karuna Shakti, that Karuna Avatar in Mahaprabhu's mood is Radharani. Is that helpful?
Yeah. You actually did mention those before, but I actually forgot about it. That's a great point, Steve. And then some of the other devotees, like, so if I'm recalling Murari Gupta, he didn't, his relationship with Lord Chaitanya is not in the form of, he didn't even appreciate, or not can't appreciate. I mean, he was more on the Ram Bhav, right? So how do we see some of those elements of those connections?
Yeah, that's described, and it's also in the Mahaprakash Leela, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. During those, I think it's 21 hours, Mahaprabhu manifested himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a very interesting pastime to study. First of all, the very first thing that we understand from that pastime is that it's extraordinary. It's kind of a one-off thing. That very fact that it's extraordinary is a very important point. It wasn't his general mood. It was an extraordinary thing. It was something he did in the beginning. And he was reciprocating with the mood of many different devotees, especially like Advaitacharya, who is Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu's Ishtadev is Krishna, and Srivas Thakur, who is Narad Muni, Haridas Thakur, who is Lord Brahma. And he's reciprocating with them in that mood and showing them the Supreme Personality of Godhead for their pleasure, for their benefit. But he himself later manifested a different mood. He wanted to show, he wanted to taste the mood of being a devotee. And the devotees, they respected that. And they kept some distance, and they didn't try to push all the time that you're actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead and things, because Mahaprabhu, when they would try that, he'd just put his fingers in his ears and start chanting Vishnu, Vishnu. So yes, there are so many devotees of Mahaprabhu. Even I'll say something really controversial, but it's something I believe in, and that is the Gauranga Nagari devotees, the Gaura Nagari devotees are also devotees of Mahaprabhu. And is it wrong that they have this particular mood toward Mahaprabhu? Well, of course, we don't agree with it, and there's several verses in Chaitanya Bhagavat where Vrindavan Das Thakur speaks against it. We just heard purports from Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta where they're speaking against it. We appreciate it's not the mood of our acharyas, it's not the proper mood, but it's a mood. And in the same way, we can speak about Kubja, which is actually my next class for our meeting Kurukshetra Leela, something about Kubja. Kubja is glorified. Kubja is millions of times greater devotee maybe than any of us. But her desire for the Lord was mixed with lust, bodily lust. And we don't consider her to be very significant in comparison with the Mahishis, the queens in Dwarka, and what to speak of the gopis of Vrindavan. So, but there are different devotees who have different moods, and there's different devotees who have different moods with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Marai, like everyone. Every one of the devotees had some little different mood. And our neophyte tendency is that we think everybody should have my mood. And maybe because we're insecure. And if everybody else adopted my mood, then I'd be peaceful. I'd know that my thing is the best. But first of all, we should understand what is our mood. And that's a very elevated thing. That's not something which is just a subject of imagination or child play that I think I'm going to, as I mentioned in some previous class, when I was a new devotee, I've been a devotee for 2 weeks, and someone gave me a little deity of Garuda. And I thought, yeah, that's really cool. Nobody worships Garuda. So I'm really, this is like my deity. I worship Garuda. I don't even know what happened to that deity over the years. He went somewhere. That's the nature of a child. A child wants to be different, wants to be recognized in a certain way. A lot of times with new devotees, we want to be recognized in a certain way, but we don't know how, because we don't know ourselves. And that's really the biggest problem in Krishna consciousness, is we're not in touch with ourselves. And therefore we're so duplicitous when putting on a show. And so many of us, we depend so much upon the external dress or upon our external profile in the community and things. And I'm not against that, but it can be detrimental for our bhakti, for understanding who we are. Part of the beginning of who we are is that I am fallen. That's the first thing to understand. I am fallen, and I should just cry to the Lord. That's the beginning of self-realization. But if we start thinking I'm a great pundit, I'm a great temple president, I'm a great preacher, I'm a publisher, I'm a this or that, and we take those services we do and we think that's me, then it can be very problematic. I saw you nodding your head when I was speaking about the temple president thing also. I've also been in that chair, and it's just something which just happens to us. We just start thinking, yes, because I am the temple president, I'm like a little god, and I know everything. And you're fortunate in your case, your Guru Maharaj is not so far away. There to let the air out of your balloon sometimes and tell you're some idiot and things. And we become a little more healthy. We can appreciate there's so many different moods, there's so many different devotees. And that's when our community really begins to blossom.
Yeah. And I think we might have discussed that before, but also that element of the mood. And you talked about pleasing Krishna as part of our devotion. And that's where, again, the challenges come in, because we're in a society, an institution, and that mood is maybe channeled, has some boundaries of some sort. And pleasing has become defined. But often that pleasing isn't really defined in true devotional service, right? I mean, if you look at something like Kutya, again, it wouldn't fit into our definitions of pleasing Krishna to a certain extent in the institutional kind of way. So that's the challenges that we'll also be faced with from a society perspective. And that's why, like, some of your points around even the subtle differences around serving, with the mood of the person who's serving, and the element of worship, the difference that might be there, which is also an important element for devotees to understand.
And of course, we can mention too, when we worship, we're worshiping according, it's a formal thing. And we worship in a particular way. Not that we speculate or make something up, but we're supposed to do this particular things as part of our worship. And I want to come and do worship. But when I go and dress, that's a different thing. Okay. All right, so we go ahead and stop there, Chaitanya Prabhu. Okay, so I think we're going to have at least one more session on this. And I'd like to, I was going to write to everybody separately. Maybe that's the best thing. We don't have so many of the devotees here today. When we finish this, I'm not sure what devotees want to do. If it's just going to be easier in our personal lives to just, I don't have that program on Sunday anymore. I can spend a little more time with my family or friends, or if we want to keep this up in another way, or shift it to another time or something. Yeah, because Krishna Kun's pointing out to when we have a writing retreat and things too. But I'm happy to do this, even with even with just today we have 4 devotees, but it's just really beautiful for me to share with the 4 of you and things. Something we're putting also online. It's for other persons that way too. So that's something to think about. Okay, so thank you all very much, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Samaveda Bhaktivedanta ki jai, vancha kalpatarubhishcha, kripa sindhu bheva cha, patitanam pavanebhyo